demonia. Use my fangs to murder ya. Yo soy la diosa, los demonios no me controlan. Soy culebra.
What's up, everyone? 7 Octoberz here with another episode of Nightmare on Sedgwick Avenue. This is season 5. I believe this is episode 14 already. So this is a longer season than I normally do. I think I do like 10 episodes. But I've had a lot of traction with getting guests on, and I kind of want to just keep going. I might end it at episode 15, but we'll see. But today we have a really dope guest. I've had the honor of meeting him and working along with him at the Thought Fest, which is a hip-hop underground festival, or independent festival is what I like to call it, for hip-hop. Shout out to 60 East, who puts that on every year in October. So I met him through there, and actually I think the first time, and I can just confer with him, but I actually met him the first time was, shout out to Platform Collection, Kelsey Ray and Eddie. He had like a book thing, like a event or something like that, and that's the first time I actually helped Platform Collection. I wasn't part of the collective yet, and I volunteered, and he was doing some sort of event for his book and for producers, and it was really dope. And I'm talking about Curtis King. He's independent artist, producer, author, creator, a little bit of everything, father, husband, all that. So let me bring him on the screen here. Hey Curtis.
How you doing?
Good. How
are
you
doing? I'm good. I'm good.
Nice to have you on, and I know I actually have never had you on, so it's cool to like have you finally on and kind of get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the irony of you bringing up the event, which probably now, I mean, that was before the pandemic, so
yeah.
You told me then, you were like, at some point I would be dope to interview you.
Yeah.
So it's dope to see everything come full circle. It just took a couple years, and it's all good. Everything happens when it's supposed to happen. But thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no, thank you. And kind of like I mentioned, you do a little bit of everything. We were talking about it a little bit before we got on the recording. But how do you manage all that stuff? Like, because you're like a jack of all trades. I can relate to you in that aspect. But how do you juggle, and what do you prefer the most? Like, how does that work for you?
In the beginning, when I tried to wear multiple hats, I was just looking for ways to get multiple tasks done on the least amount of budget, because that's kind of what I had, right? This is my budget. This is my work budget. This is whatever I can assess to music without putting myself in too much debt and not being able to pay my car note and all these things that I had responsibilities of. But initially, it was just about, okay, well, I can't hire a graphic designer at this point to meet the quality that I know I need, but I can learn Photoshop. Okay, well, I cannot afford at this point a video editor that is going to give me the quality. But you know what? I've been editing videos probably just as long as I've been making music. I'll just continue to shoulder those responsibilities. And so in the beginning, I think the balance worked out, because if I didn't get it done, it wouldn't get done. So it wasn't a matter of trying to figure out what's the perfect harmony between them. It was chaotic.
Yeah.
But eventually, what I figured out is that someone gave me great advice. A mentor of mine told me, you wear all these hats. You're a producer. Some people know you as an artist. Some people know you as whatever. But don't forget, when you zoom out of all that, you're just a creative. So wearing the title of being a creative, I think, helps so much in terms of recognizing that I am none of these things. What I am is how I do it, and I work hard at all of them. I give the most to all of them. But the way that I balance it now is just recognizing that the music won't sound the same unless you allow me space to just graphic design. The graphic design won't be the same if you don't allow me space to cut up content and live stream and just, make beats or make songs. It's all working in harmony because they need one another. I'm a creative spirit.
Yeah. And I can relate to that for sure. And for you, because you talk about like, chaos at first, and then like later on, you kind of probably get in the groove of stuff. Like for you as a creative, because I know for me, I need like structure or like time management for me, especially like, they say there's 24 hours in a day, but for me, I have to break it down, and that's how I get shit done. For you, like, is that the same way, or what's your way of kind of like being able to do multiple things in a day?
Well, also recognizing what needs to get done in the day is probably the most important for me. I heard a quote that said, your only goal of the day should be just to win the day. And what it means to win the day might be something completely different for everybody else. For me, it may be only 3 tasks. that make me feel like, you know what, I won the day. I you not even use the most amount of time throughout the day, but these tasks that I created, or these tasks that I've completed, are moving the needle closer to me accomplishing whatever goal that is. If it's to generate income,
Mm-hmm.
then I need to do income producing activities. If it's to build up community, then I need to do community building responsibilities. But a lot of times we stack up our days with all these different tasks because we're afraid, or we're insecure about something, or we think that, just being busy is the same thing as being productive. And sometimes it kind of satisfies our ego. But I had to recognize that that's not what my value is to the day. I need to win the day. And so what I've done is I got a whiteboard up here close that I don't put a lot of things on it per day. It's probably like even yesterday, looking at the responsibilities. I had a video review, I had a live stream, and
Mm-hmm.
then edit micro content. Now, that has many steps within them, but they're only the only things I need to do that day. So I don't go to sleep feeling guilty and wishing that I accomplished more, because more doesn't necessarily mean better.
That's true. That's deep. Yeah, that's true. I like that because I think I was talking about that. You touched on like being busy versus being productive, and
Mm-hmm.
like that. I think hustle mentality. I think a lot of us like at least for me, like my parents were always working, so I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that kind of. I guess it's like a trauma maybe response where like I always
It
want to be
is.
doing something right.
It is. It is.
But
It
then you
is.
realize, like you said, it's okay. Like I think you might have posted it because I seen it. I saw it on social media too, where it's like sometimes you gotta rest. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to earn your rest. Like you just need like a day to
Mm-hmm.
just do nothing, and that's totally fine. Especially as a creative, I think we're like so hard on ourselves, right? Like we feel like if we didn't create something that day, like
We
we
feel like we're a
like
lazy bum.
yeah,
Yeah, we
or like
we
disappointment.
disappointment and all these things, and it's like it's not fair to do that to us when
Yes.
the only people who care that much about it are people who work hard. The
Mhm.
people who care to criticize that are people who don't actually know what hard work is. So we're always the ones who absorb that kind of critique and then want to do something about it because we actually care
Yeah.
about moving the needle. But the truth of the matter is, all of us are trying to achieve a flow state, right? We're trying to achieve
Mhm.
a level of flow within our work that we we're so invested in it that we lose track of time. We lose track of when's the last time we ate. We're just so invested by the work in front of us that we just kind of lose touch with reality to a certain degree. We're
Yeah.
all trying to achieve flow, but flow doesn't get created by just hammering at the work all the time with brute force. The most important thing that you could do to ensure that you consistently get in a flow is to treat rest with as much importance as your work. Like
Mhm.
you have to look at rest almost as competitive as when you're sitting in front of your creative task and you're like, I want to be the best at this. You're talking to somebody who got bags under their eyes. I'm still working on it, right? But
Yeah.
I'm starting to see that is the ultimate cheat code, because what is every hustler doing? Every hustler is working and lacking on sleep. What happens after the hustler eventually comes down? Health issues,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
Because sleep deprivation is the quickest. Stress and sleep deprivation are some of the quickest killers for all of us.
Mhm.
And so I'm recognizing now, like, when I have a day where I know I have so many things I need to do, if I'm not feeling it, this is the flexibility and the freedom that I worked so hard to achieve to get to. Take a break. A few days
Yeah.
ago, I had terrible neck pain from being in front of the computer for hours and on end. And I woke up and said, am I going to give the best to this day? Am I going to even give uh, what the people are needing? Or am I just going to show up because I get a badge of honor for just
Yeah.
showing up? No, I want to be my best. And if I take this day off, that might mean another month of high level productivity, or take this weekend off. So I don't play with rest anymore.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, because it's like you will lose more time anyways. Like you said, it ends up affecting your health, and
Mm-hmm.
then like if you're not healthy, then you can't do the things you want to do, and then it actually takes more time out of like where you get sick, and who knows how long you're gonna get sick for. If it's something where it's like health or mental.
Yeah. Think about the irony of that, what you just said, in that people say, well, why don't you ever take a break? Because I have money to be made, and I can't lose out on that money. Well, if you keep hammering at your body
Mm-hmm.
like that, your body's going to put you in a position where you can't work and you lose out on money.
And it might possibly even more, right?
And yeah, exactly, because medical expenses are no joke. So
Yeah.
even when people say, for 10 years before I broke it this year, and I'm getting back to it, but for 10 years I did straight, no meat diet and vegetarianism. And
Mm-hmm.
uh people are like, man, it's so expensive to eat healthier. And I'm like, what's more expensive than eating healthy is the medical bills that pile up from me eating unhealthy, the
True.
cheaper foods and all of that. So that to me is like the irony in life. And it's almost like,
Mm-hmm.
I know you're like the theme of your branding is really within uh like horror films. Those are some of my favorite, like plot twists. It's when it's like you thought you got away with something and that was your inevitable doom. Like,
Yeah.
to me, that's just the reality of life, is that nobody gets out of this alive.
Yeah. That's true. It's like what's it called? John dies in the end. It's like we all die in the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Or
um,
like the Saw movies, where you have at the very, at the end, where you think that there's a hero in this movie, and come to find out even they die, and it's like, wait, I was invested with this character. There's no way this person dies, and it's like, well, in real life, like these titles don't exist.
yeah.
Just the circumstances and the events that we walk one foot in front of the other, and you know hope for the best. But in real life, like there are no, like, there I don't want to say there's no heroes, but everyone has a demise, everyone has an end.
Yeah.
It's expiration date on it all. So
Yeah, that's true. Even or like the villains or in movies or whatever, or the villains, the heroes, like at the end, everybody's flawed, right? Nobody's perfect.
yeah.
Is one thing we realize. And I like what you said about, like being in like a flow state, right? Like trying to make things kind of be seamlessly and stuff like that. Like I saw that you posted, I think it was, I forgot what the name of the track was. It was one of your singles. We were talking about the way you change the way you write music, right?
Hmm.
That's pretty cool. Like, do you want to talk a little bit about that for those
Sure.
listening, for like musicians?
So for those that don't know, I've been making music as a producer and a rapper, an artist, for almost 20 years now. And as you can imagine, I've seen different eras of music creation before the internet, at the beginning of the internet,
Hmm.
in terms of like the more social media internet is what I'm talking about, because internet's been around forever, right? But I've seen different eras of this, and I've tried different creative paths to try to get my art completed.
Hmm.
And over the years, I've done things that went against, like, we have these purist rules sometimes in hip hop that are like, if you're a producer, you never want to use someone else's loops or drum loops or whatever. And so I've been breaking those things down in the name of evolving, in the name of trying to achieve a better flow in what I'm doing. And this year, I broke away from something that I was probably the most purist about, which was any song that I wrote, any verse that I wrote was pen to paper. And I felt like there was such a deep connection between pen and paper and the ideas that came from my brain. I didn't ever want to break away from it. It was nostalgic. It reminded, like,
Yeah.
those black and white notebooks that you get from the grocery
Yeah, the
store,
composition books,
the
right?
composition books. I'm so, like, I don't know, like, I don't have a whole lot of impulse buys. Like, I'm not somebody that buys a bunch of fancy stuff except for my equipment and
Yeah.
whatnot. But when I see those composition books, I have to skip that aisle because I just want to collect them. I love the idea of a blank canvas to work with. So that's
Hmm.
how obsessed I was with writing. But this year, and a little bit last year at the end, I started experimenting with, okay, on my YouTube channel, I was live streaming almost every day at some point, and
Hmm.
I'm making songs. I got so comfortable with the process that it was like, I got these people watching me right now, like 50, 60 something people watching me. Do I really want to, I don't want to say waste 30 minutes of their time as they wait on me to write a verse and hopefully I do it in 30 minutes? I said, no, I want to try making this beat, keeping everything moving, looping
Hmm.
a section, and just saying whatever's on my mind. And when I
Yeah.
tell you, doing that at first was like, okay, am I doing this right? Am I, because when you write with your pen, you feel like there's so much more detail you can add, and it just has
Yeah.
more. to it. But the reality of it is that it's not always about what you're saying it is very much how you're saying it, and
Mm-hmm.
also leaving room for people to digest the things that you say. And I think that for somebody that comes from a lineage of lyricists, somebody who came up as a lyricist, that's so important. It's, you don't want to just stuff a bunch of words. There's so much value in the simplicity of, can you break this down for somebody who doesn't quite understand all the detailed nuance. And so this
Yeah.
process, I I fell in love with it. So now it's like, I don't know if I can do this in a studio session with other people quite yet, but I know when
Mm-hmm.
it's me, turn the cameras on, I give myself 3 hours to do all this. Make a beat, write the song.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a fluid motion. And what I recognize is the same thing I recognize with making beats, that if you want to continue flow, you got to continue moving. Flow reacts to your movement. Flow reacts to your decision making and your ease in decision making. When something doesn't
Yeah.
work, pivot. Go to the next thing. Don't over obsess over this thing. So my writing process has changed, and I listen to the music, and it feels like more like a conversation and less like me trying to impress somebody with, how detailed my lyricism is, or
Yeah.
how entertaining the way it's just, there's so many different things I think as lyricists we pay attention to that normal consumers just don't give a damn about. It's like, tell me a story, and can I understand it, and can I relate?
Yep.
That's what I'm focused on. That's my process now, and I'm loving it.
That's dope. Yeah, I can relate because I'm the same way as you. I started writing with pen and paper, and then there's been times where like I play like, and I think it's happened to you as well. Like even before you probably switched your the way you do it, but
Mm-hmm.
for me, I noticed that if I found like a really dope beat that I don't know, like something about it that just like you can just write to it without even having to write on a piece of paper. Like for me, I would
Mm-hmm.
just put it on, put the mic on, and then just kind of like you said, say things just from the top of my head. And then I noticed that those, like you said, the delivery, the flow of it, it just makes it more, like you said, fluid. Um,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
even if it doesn't make sense, because I'm pretty sure you've said it where you say some stuff and I'm like, oh, it doesn't really make sense. But then it kind of starts off like, it's like when you're starting to write like a paragraph for your paper, and that's the hardest part, is starting with that first line.
Right.
When you do it like that, you're like, oh, I said this, but maybe I can fix it. But it's like just the free flow of your mind just kind of creating it as you go.
Yeah,
It's kind of
and
crazy.
and something else I noticed, just to add on to what you're saying, is that when you're adding a line at a time like that, you're also reviewing what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, you're reviewing it as if you're the listener or as if you're the director of a movie. Like when a
Yeah.
director looks at a scene, they have a monitor that's on top of the camera to look at it. And then they'll say, hold on, let's do playback. And they'll do playback, and they'll say, oh, that was good. You know what? But we can
Mm-hmm.
do this better. And so as I'm doing this line by line, my focus shifts from, okay, I have 16 bars that I wrote down, and I want to get through this and make it sound as seamless as possible and as natural as possible. Now I'm focusing on each line, each 2 bar line,
Mm.
and I'm like, do I really need to say a word right after this, or should I leave some space here? So people are able to absorb it, because
Yeah.
I think as creatives, we take for granted that not everybody else is creative,
Yeah. That's
and we
deep with you.
speak a certain language to them sometimes that is like, they're like, I don't, that's not my thing. So
Yeah.
uh it's important to be able to put your listener cap on, sit back and be like, as like a video director, and be like, I like the way I said that. Maybe now I should shift this next 2 bars because of how I said that.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that was my thing. One thing about like the way I write, it was more like poetry kind of structure.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Kill C Ray, shout out to him. He was the one that was like, "You're like cramming too much into like a sentence." Like, and then he said the same thing. Like, not everybody's gonna be paying attention to it. You have to like make it as simple as possible. Like what
Yes.
you just said, you can just make it even shorter, and then from there, I kind of changed the way I would structure my songs, because it does make a huge difference. And then one thing about me is, I'm like, I don't like silence in between sometimes. Like he was like you need to let it breathe, like
Right,
you don't have to
right.
have like bar after bar. And I was like, oh, okay, okay. And so it
Well,
kind
I
of
mean,
like changed up your delivery.
because when you think about certain things like media, like in silence in media is like the worst thing. Like the radio silence is terrible when you're doing something with
Yeah.
video or content. But there's a lot of strength in having the ability to say something and let people gather their thoughts upon what you said. Like
Yeah.
it's such a, we all are like when we watch a live performance, or we watch like a comedian, like that comedic pause
Yeah, yeah.
is a valuable thing to have in your bag, because you give people an opportunity to like build up tension and be like, oh, I think I know where he's going, and then you deliver on it. Then that's just the ultimate. So I think that I feel you. I'm the same way. I was always insecure about, I fit all these different words in the bars. And then I'm like, oh my God, if I have a space here, they're going to think I ran out of rhyming words, or whatever the case may be. Just
Yeah.
stupid stuff that come to mind. But I remember Noah, shout out to homie Noah James. He told me one time, he was like, we know you can rap. He's talking about us as listeners. We know you can
Hmm.
rap. But he's like, can you just talk to us? Can you just say what's on your mind, so that we can catch up to your train of thought. We can catch up to who you are and your story. He said, I
Yeah.
think the moment that you slow it down, more people are going to latch on to what you're doing. And that's what produced like songs like Sinbad,
That's it.
where I literally, space was all over that song. I think I'm Sinbad, gone and forgotten, product of the 90s. That's when I was popping. Like that's so difficult for somebody who's used to just being a
Exactly.
swordsman
Yeah.
about adding a bunch of words.
Yeah, especially I think that also the rappers we grew up like cannabis is one of them. So like for me, I was just like trying to be cannabis, and I was
Yeah.
like, I was like, I can't be cannabis.
I
uh,
get that. I get that. Well,
um,
it was Nas and Jay Z for me,
yeah.
and yeah, yeah. Those are the ones for me for
And
sure.
obviously like the era changes, so like I feel like more people like shout out to Noah, like the advice he gave you is like it's true. Like I think a lot of people now want simple songs that like
Mhm.
you don't need to go and look in the dictionary, like it's just something simple
Yeah,
and the catchy too that you can like resonate with and also like keep hearing in your head.
it's almost like watching. It's almost like watching a how do I put this? Like one of those movies that are like they're like it's plot twist after plot twist after plot twist, but it's like way too deep. It's
Yeah.
almost like watching a movie like that in the middle of it, and you're like, what the hell? Like Memento. It's like
Yeah.
watching Memento towards the middle of the movie. You're like, this sound, or even Pulp Fiction. You don't realize everything is being given to you in reverse order.
Mhm.
You need context. Context is so important, but you got to speak on like if you. It's so I think it's great to want to be masterful and have mystery to what you're doing, but you got to make people first of all give a damn about what you're talking about.
Exactly. Yep. um and you obviously one of your biggest brands is like doing it yourself. You just talked about also like
Absolutely.
training yourself on how to do certain things. I think as an independent artist, one thing you have to like learn how to do a little bit of everything, right?
Hmm.
Where did that mentality come from, like do it yourself type of thing?
Well, I was already doing it myself from the very beginning, as we talked about earlier. And so
Yeah.
it wasn't necessarily a brand as much as it was just like my inner sense of pride in this
Mhm.
idea of, DIY has more history within like how do I put this? Like Home Depot and like folks that are doing DIY projects at home and
Yeah, yeah.
creating their own cabinets and all. It has more history in that kind of stuff, repairmen and whatnot. But for me, a lot of people tried to make me feel like it was a weakness to do all these things for myself. They tried to make me
Oh,
feel
wow.
like I was trying to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. And they didn't realize how much joy I could have taking on all these hats, and how doing one thing removed pressure from this other thing needing to be something, right? I don't
Mhm.
have to be the best video editor. But if I get it to a level where you're asking me, who edited that? It's pretty good. For me, that was like the greatest satisfaction, because it's like
Yeah.
with time it's like any task, I can learn how to get better. But fast forward to 2012, I made a project called DIY. And it was once
Mhm.
again a project where I was like, you know what? I've been chasing so many different things, chasing radio play, chasing features, chasing ideas that I shared with people that nobody would really see the vision in it except for me. And I was like, I'm tired. I
Mhm.
just want to, you know what? I'm going to stop sharing it with people and just do it myself. So I produce all the beats, a majority of the beats. I think the homie Jinx produced a few on there, but
Mhm.
uh, everything. I just launched on ideas that sounded so stupid out loud, and I just did it and produced some of the most popular songs in my catalog.
Mhm.
Fast forward to now, 2022, we did DIY too. And
Yeah.
it was the first project that I showed people where I literally recorded every single song session from beginning to end on an SD card. If you know,
Oh wow.
most like I had an SD card in 4K. So when I was vlogging these, I only had 4 hours to do a song and complete it. And I did the whole project like that, either on the SD card or on live stream. And so what I noticed is that my content, even beyond producers and artists, it resonates with people who don't like waiting on people. It resonates with people
Yeah.
who feel like their ideas are worthy enough to invest their own money and are not hard. They're not afraid of doing the hard work
Mm-hmm.
to make it mean something, right, to other people.
Yeah.
And so when I saw that it resonated with so many different people, I was like, you know what? I had a buddy of mine, the homie Pack, and he was like, man, I really think that this is your brand. And he helped me really see the vision on that.
Mm-hmm.
And, in came this logo, in came the DIYers, hammer over wrench
Yeah.
emoji. And it's just everything just started to come together because that's naturally what my brand has always been from the beginning.
Yeah, that's really dope. That's why I like that, and I like the projects that you dropped. But I like that you stand for that because I feel like a lot of like the era that we're from, I feel like we kind of just had to learn how to do it ourselves, especially because now we have all these tools
Mm-hmm.
that weren't available before. You know, like you can put yourself on distro or whatever, you either DistroKid, TuneCore, whatever. Like there's so many different ways for like musicians now to be able to do it from like you don't really need anybody. Obviously
Mm-hmm.
you'll still need to get the skills and own the craft, but there's just so many tools now that we have at our disposal, and it's
Yeah.
kind of like on you if you don't learn it, like if you really want it, you'll learn how to do this stuff.
Sure. And I think that's the era we're living in, even be like I said, even beyond just excuse me, us as musicians, like
Mm-hmm.
during the pandemic, you saw so many people who had ideas but
Yeah.
didn't have the opportunity to launch on it because they had jobs, they had responsibilities, they had school, they had things that they had to tend to. And I feel like 2020 was a great reset for a lot of people in that
Yeah.
government told you couldn't leave a house, right? A lot of folks didn't want to leave a house. And so a
Yeah.
lot of businesses got launched. And there's businesses to this day that still wouldn't have been in existence had it not been for everything that happened that forced us to stay at home with ourselves, our
Yeah.
families, and our thoughts. And so I look at that and I'm recognizing that I've already always been on that, right? I haven't worked a
Mm-hmm.
9 to 5 since 2009 maybe.
Oh wow.
I've been very very blessed to be able to do what
Yeah.
I'm doing. But the DIY culture to me is just another name for independent.
Mm-hmm.
It to me is the it's a extension of it to where it's like I was talking to Noah about this at an event a few months ago, and he was like, "You recognize that a lot of people who identified themselves as underground weren't necessarily independent?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "There's a lot of underground artists who, by their own want, decided they didn't want mainstream success, but they weren't necessarily independent about or being proactive about taking on multiple responsibilities. They still had
Mm-hmm.
teams.
Yeah.
They still had people who were taking care of their social media, taking care of their booking." And he's like, "We are the new independents." And I'm like,
Yeah.
there's so much truth to that. So in
Yeah.
in in light, in lieu of the new independents, I just call it DIYers because I feel like it's more than just independent artists and independent music. It's folks who just
That's true.
have great ideas and they're tired of trying to make other people believe in them. They're tired of waiting on them. And they're like, you know what? I'll put my own money on it and I'll do it myself.
Yeah. No, I'm always with that too because I feel like it's funny how some artists that are trying to like get on or sign, which I feel like that's like the old mentality, but
Super
there's sti-
old.
there's there's still people that think that like by getting signed or co-signed, like they'll like whatever, I don't know what they have in
Yeah.
their minds, but it's like at the same time, like I think it's smart, like what we're kind of talking about is like learning how to do everything, because if you just trust this one person that's gonna try to like do the best for you, is like, come on, you're like living in a like a little dream or something. Because it's not like that in the industry. Like you kind of have to kind of fend for yourself
Yeah.
and be knowledgeable about like different things, from like owning your publishing, all that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
um
Mm-hmm.
and for you, do you see yourself like, I don't know, like becoming kind of like, I guess you are already like a mentor, like in the producing community and like the artist community, but do you ever feel yourself like see yourself getting like started like a record label or something along the lines where like you have like an incubator for artists, or is that something that's
Hell
not?
no.
No.
Hell no. I love artists and I know artists way too well to do something like that to myself.
Yeah.
I have given a large chunk of my life to the creative community,
Yeah.
um, through my content, through my one-to-one mentorship, through the events like you talked about earlier, through my
Yeah.
book. Uh, I would never want to be someone's manager. I would never want to be, even mentorship. I've learned that it can be extremely draining when you're
Mhm.
mentoring people who want the information because they like how it sounds, but they have no intent to actually use it. And
Yeah.
that's draining for me because my thing is, I'm not so obsessed with you saying, "Oh my God, that was so inspirational, Curtis." Like, "Oh my God, you helped me so much." I want to know if it actually worked for you because all I can give you is my own
Yeah.
experience and the things that I went through in hopes that it translates the same way for you.
Yeah.
And so that's my biggest thing. And so mentorship is cool, but I need to be able to control the amount of energy and time that I give to it and not make that the center focus of what I do, or find ways that I can do that and still, have my life.
Yeah.
Because once you become folks mentors, it's human beings are, that's why I stay pretty stoic on things, right? Because I
Mhm.
understand that human beings can flip on you really quickly. I've had
That's
people
true.
who, within 4 messages, "Hey, Curtis, man, you're an inspiration. I love what you do. You said something that changed my life. I didn't get an opportunity to get back to you, but I had a plan to come back to it." Second message, "Yo, get back to me." Third message, "You're not shit, Curtis." I've had that happen so
That's
many
crazy.
times where
Yeah.
I'm learning to take to heart what Gary Vee says about don't overvalue the positive or the negative feedback because they can both flip in a moment's
That's
notice.
true.
And they're also half truths, right? Somebody could tell you that you're inspiring to them, but they could also be uh, lightweight jealous,
Yeah.
right? You inspire them, but they also feel like they should be where you're at. So I don't think that's everybody, but I think it's a good reason to just stay pretty even and be grateful for it all, that somebody
Yeah.
cares enough to say something negative about you, or that somebody says something they say something positive about you and they care enough to even share that because they could have kept that to themselves. I'm equally
That's true.
grateful because none of
Yeah.
this is owed to me for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And where do you see yourself like, or what's your ultimate goal like for yourself? Like maybe like 5, 10 years from now.
um 5 years from now, like I'm really about living in the moment. I'm living in the moment,
Yeah.
right? Because I recognize that you can plan whatever you want to plan and then something pops up and changes all those plans. So
True.
I
True.
stay pretty loose about that, even though I do have two um, giant goals that I always have in my mind that everything is building towards. And I think that's healthy to have that, right? Because
Yeah.
it sometimes the reason why you wake up in the morning. But I want to do two major things. I want to have a 24-hour vegetarian restaurant drive
Nice.
through, since I've had so many late night studios. I know that sounds random, but late night studio sessions in which there were no healthy options. And the second one would be to create a school, a traditional brick and mortar school for music producers and rappers who want to be the best independent artists and producers they can be, right?
Yeah.
DIYer, almost like a DIY university. Um, those are two things that are like major goals of mine. But in the meantime, I just need to exchange as much value as I can for as much capital can be built so that I can reinvest it into not only those ideas in the future, but also make sure that I, maintain my life and provide for my family.
Yeah.
But, I ultimately want to be in a position to have those two things accomplished. Those are huge to me.
That's dope. Yeah, I agree with the drive through because sometimes you're like, there's no healthy options to drive through.
Yeah, it's terrible. Like Jack and the Crack. Like,
Yeah.
and shout out to all of those folks because I mean, if it wasn't for them, maybe I'd just been hungry
Yeah.
that night. But it's just options that if you knew there was a healthy option, you would do that. And that's something that I'm like,
Yeah.
I remember having those thoughts when I was in the drive through. I'd feel guilty, like, damn, do I really need this breakfast jack right now?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm hungry, but damn it, I wish there was like, and I don't want the little side salad they got, 'cause that was terrible.
Yeah. Uh, and what's like your favorite part of the creative process, and what's your least favorite?
My favorite part of the creative process is the flow state, is when I've taken on task and I've gone through multiple steps and it's got me
Hmm.
to a place where I'm just like, I'm in this. That
Yeah.
is the greatest feeling. One of the greatest feelings in the world is when you know that you're in a flow, and it's almost like Super Mario when he got the star, and nothing could touch him, nothing could harm him. Like I that's how I feel in that process. And I
Yeah.
could achieve flow through arranging my beats. I could get it through working on it. But that mode where you just feel like you can do no wrong. It's the greatest feeling in the world. And I
Hmm.
achieve it through multiple art forms. My least favorite is probably the way I feel physically a day after. Right? So like the migraines, the neck pains, the stuff that makes me have to invest, an incredible amount of money into turmeric and things that help with inflammation.
Yeah.
I wish that I could keep my 20-year-old body and its
Seriously.
endurance through my 30s into my 40s. Like I'm 38 now, but that's probably my least favorite because I don't there's not anything a part of the process that I hate so much and do anyways. I feel like
Hmm.
there's things that are lower on the list, but
Yeah.
I also recognize, like, dog, this is a privilege for you to even call this a career. Chill out.
Yeah.
So there's times where I'm like, oh, I want to edit a video,
Yeah.
but I'm like, bro, you get to edit a video, first of all. And this is your profession. Shut up. Like you're really complaining about this right now? If you, and then when I do also too, I think it's really important. Like call yourself out on your own bull. Like, bro, what do you need? You need a nap? Yeah, I need a nap. Okay, then go take a grown man nap and come back to this. But stop playing around with time, and time that could be spent with your family or time that could be spent doing something productive and half-assing it here. Like I now am able to just stop myself in a moment and
Hmm.
say, all right, I don't feel like doing this type of task right now. But I'm not going to quit the entire thing. I just don't want to
Yeah.
do this now, and I move on to the next thing. But
Yeah.
that's also why wearing multiple hats is so fire, because it gives you options to where
Yeah.
I
Take a
sit in
break
front
from
of the
something.
computer. Yeah, I sit in front of the computer and I can say, because I got a stand up desk, I can lift the desk up and say, today,
Hmm.
all I'm doing is Instagram Reels. That's it. Or I
Yeah.
can say, today, all I'm doing is thumbnails for future YouTube videos. That's it. Or you know what? I just want to mix a beat today. That's it. So
Yeah.
that flexibility is important. And so I try not to look at things as a part of the process, but
Yeah.
really the after effects is the things that really literally kicks my ass.
Yeah. And what advice would you give, like, to like an up and coming artist, either a producer or a musician or artist? Like, what's one piece of advice you would give them?
Just be patient with the process. I know that's probably something they've heard a million and one times, but
Hmm.
no matter what you accomplish, no matter what you are working towards, what you're going to find is that your little friend called patience is going to continue to be the big dog, right? That little friend that you treating like is just, oh, that's just my little, that's like, I'm like your little brother, right? You're like, oh, this is my little brother. My mom made him come out here to play with us. Um, Patience will always be there. And what you'll recognize is that no matter how old you get, no matter how mature, no matter how good you get at what you do, it's going to ultimately bring you back and humble you back here with that word, patience. So have patience with yourself. Try not to look at the highlights of other people on social media and make that rush what you're doing. Don't let people who have never even tried what you're doing give you advice on what you're doing
That's true.
that you take as like the Bible. Like I think it's great to get influence from multiple people, because sometimes you get a gem from somebody who's never done it. I've been there
Hmm.
before. 9 times out of 10, though, it's folks theorizing. And a lot of times we value their theories over our own theories because we're asking them for advice. Cut all that. Be patient and recognize that you're not behind. You're never behind, especially when you know that you have a valid reason why you're doing what you're doing. You're never behind if you know why what you're doing. So patience is truly key, because here I am 20 years into this, and I'm still talking about the next level. And a lot of people
Yeah.
who get to this age as creatives, they start thinking like, well, maybe it just didn't work out because I don't have massive success by society standards. I'm looking at
Hmm.
this like, you can't take this off of me because this is who I am. No matter
Yeah.
where you put me, this is who I am. So it's important.
Yeah, that's true. And hey, you're making a living out of your art. Not a lot of people can say that, you know? So
Yeah. And you know what's crazy about that is that I had this vision in high school, even at a time where like independence wasn't as cool as it is today. It wasn't as
hmm
socially accepted as it is today. And it still has a ways to go. I'm
yeah.
thankful for folks like LaRussell and Tech Nine who like really make the conversation a mainstream conversation,
Yeah.
even though they're still independent. But yeah, like it still has a ways to go. But at that time I had a vision. I was like, yo, if the worst case scenario is that I can just make a living and this is just my job, that's a W. That's a big
Yeah.
W. So yeah,
It is,
and
yeah.
and today, I don't care how terrible of a day it is. The worst I can have is a good day.
Exactly, yeah. And you're your own boss too, so like
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
trying to like what you're doing is my, my end goal too. Is like I don't want to have a 9 to 5, but for now
Mhm.
I got to juggle until I can afford to pay bills with my art.
Well, and one thing I would tell you too, like I wish I would have had this mindset about my job, and that my jobs, contrary to what a lot of people say who quit their job and then they do this full time, this
hmm
shit ain't easy. First
Yeah.
of all, and second of all, um, jobs are not, they're not always the enemy if you choose to
Like the way you see it.
reposition them. Yeah. If,
Yeah.
you, if I were working a job today, I would look at it as, it's annoying, but it is my angel investor. It is the reason
Exactly.
why I'm able to say, all right, this part of my brain doesn't have to focus on how am I going to pay rent right now. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? This part of my brain already knows I did my work, and now this money can be invested into camera equipment, can be invested into music equipment, studio time,
hmm
whatever it is. Like, that peace of mind is something that you're almost, as an entrepreneur, you're kind of trained to live with a certain amount of chaos that you see as peace. A
Yeah.
certain amount of like looseness to your time and unpredictability, because there's so many elements that are out of your control.
hmm
And it's like you get paid when people get paid, and then they see your stuff, and then they invest in your stuff after you've convinced them of the value of it before they get it. There's a lot of things that I don't have control over, and
Yeah.
it's still really hard times
Yeah.
even through all of this. But these are the kind of problems that are high quality problems for me, and I'll take them any day, anyway.
Yeah, no, you make a good point too about like the mentality, because I remember like I think last year is when I was having a hard time. I was like, I was starting to kind of like hate my job, but I was
Mm-hmm.
like, and then
Mm-hmm.
I remember I had like a conversation with Kelsey, right? And he's like, well, just kind of like we said, like think about it as like it allows you to fund your dreams, right? So
Yes.
if you change the way you see it versus like, oh, I have to wake up every morning and go to this, 9 to 5, and
Mm-hmm.
change it. And as soon as I changed kind of like the way I viewed it, and more of like, okay, if it wasn't for this, like I wouldn't have the money, like you said, to invest in other things that I want to
Mm-hmm.
do on the side. And it did help, because then I was like, okay, I wasn't like having like a shitty day, like because I was pissed off that I had to go to work. You go to work,
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
was like, okay, now I can do this, and it allows me to still do what I love uh, after I get off, because
And
go ahead.
I'm about to say, it also keeps you out of the work politics too, because the work politics
Yes.
can be like when I worked at Quiznos, I came home smelling like work. But then on top of that, I came home with the drama of work.
Oh
Then I
yeah.
talked to, like, my mom or whoever was around about what happened at work, and so it was like I never actually clocked out. So when you when you know
Yeah.
why you're at work, and you make the decision of, look, I'm here to do the best that I can, because who you are is not what you do, it's how you do it. And if I half-ass it here, even when I become full-time in music, I'm going to half-ass it
Yeah.
somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks can't make that connection. It sounds stupid to them to even say that, but it's the truth.
It's
If
true.
you are at a job where you are paid to do a task and you half-ass it because you don't like it,
Mm-hmm.
that is going to be no different than you sitting in front of your video editing software and half-assing parts of the process, whether it's the keyframing, whether it's the smooth cutting, whether it's the coloring, whether it's whatever,
Yeah.
because you don't like it. And that is going to
Exactly.
reflect upon how people engage with it, how people enjoy it or don't enjoy it. So anywhere you go, give it your all. Anywhere you go, it's not about your job. It's not about your boss. It's not about trying to be a kiss ass. It's really about if I establish discipline here, it will
Yep.
be the greatest gift I give to my future business when I have to do this now and I'm the boss. Because being your own boss, as cool as that sounds,
It's 24/7 though.
it's 24/7 and
24/7.
like
Yeah.
it's an amount of stress that I don't know that I have like compartmentalized until December when I get away from it all and I take an entire month off. And then
Mm-hmm.
I recognize like how shaky my body has been. And I realize like how like
Yeah.
on the go I've been and how hustle I've been. And I just got to get reminded of the things that really matter the most because when all of this is gone, you're going to be left with the relics or the results of all that stress that you put on your body. So
Yeah.
uh, the job can be a gift.
It's true. Yeah. Because like you said, like your work ethic, all that stuff, you take it with you. So
Yeah.
I'm the same way. Like whatever I do, I kind of put like 100% on it. Because like you said, eventually, like if you're gonna be your own boss, you're gonna have to put the same work or even actually
Hmm.
more because you don't have days off.
How you do one thing is how you do everything. And a lot of
Exactly.
folks don't want to hear that, but it's like,
It's true.
it is the truth.
And what's like your favorite song or album that you've done so far and why?
Favorite song that I've done? Um,
Or project?
Favorite song. You asking me to pick my kids, my favorite kids. Favorite project is probably DIY, the first one, because it
Okay.
was me being uh a stubborn artist, like not even stubborn, but like being like, yo, I'm gonna launch my ideas, and I don't care what nobody got to say about it, and it produced some of the best music in my career.
Yeah.
So maybe a tie between that and like Snick at Night, but I can't even listen to Snick at Night, so it's so like young and cringy for me. But DIY for sure. In terms of songs, like it depends on what day you catch me. It'll be certain songs that I'm like, those songs represented all the hard work that I put in before it. And then there's
Mhm.
certain songs that are just personal to me because I'm just like, that's my baby. Like I just so it depends on the days. But I do have a song that is called Faithful as a Metro that nobody has ever heard. It's one of the very first ones, but I listened to that song, I kid you not, probably 700, 800 times after I did it because it was the first time that I listened to music and didn't feel like it was me
Yeah.
trying to rap. It was like me and a buddy of mine who could play the keys, and he did like a piano solo at the end of it. Song's not that good, but damn it, if that song doesn't represent like a micro vision of what was to come,
Yeah.
that song absolutely does it. So, and nobody has access to it unless you got a CD.
Uh, I have to like ask you for it or something.
Yeah, that's it. I
uh,
don't even know if I got it, which is crazy.
and then you worked obviously with like really dope artists like Noah James, Absol is one of them, and I kind of wanted to ask you about like the relationship that you have with like Absol. How did that come about? Because he's one of my favorite artists, and how was that experience, and how has it been now? Like, do you guys still keep in touch, or how has that
Yeah.
been?
So Absol met me in the very same patio, my grandmother's patio, that I did all of that DIY stuff I told you about, the video editing, the
Mm-hmm.
graphic design. And on that patio, a lot of music got created. And
Yeah.
there was an artist that I found on MySpace that was local when I was living in Carson, California, where Absol's from.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the first one that I met. And he was kind of like the homie Grimm. He was the connection to Absol, and then
Okay.
eventually Absol came over. Eventually, uh, the group that Absol was a part of, the collective Top Notch, came over, and so there was a session that we had. I made a beat, and they was like, "Oh, this is hard." I remember the first time I recorded Absol in my grandmother's patio. He was just a very rare talent that you only see every so once in a lifetime, right?
Yeah.
And I saw it at a young age. There, we couldn't have been no older than like sheesh, like I might have been uh, early 20s. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's how I met him, and then from there we started to work more and more on that patio until eventually he got signed to uh, TDE. And when he got signed to TDE, him just being the kind of guy he is, he was like, uh, "Let's keep working." And obviously, you know, you continue to work with me and invest in me before, and I want to do the same thing with you as we move forward in here. So with
Yeah.
me having that relationship, I gave him a beat CD, a CD full of beats, and he took those beats over to TDE. And it's a lot of stories that I told about that CD because not all the beats were the best beats. One of the beats was a gunshot beat that was, you know, something that Punch from TDE, the president, talks about all the time, where he's like, it was the worst beat he ever heard. But that beat was what Schoolboy Q rapped over when auditioning to basically get signed to TDE, and he was signed afterwards
Oh wow.
with that. And he said it himself on interviews on Homegrown, where he's like, "Man, that beat was terrible, but shout out to you, Curtis King, for that." So, but no,
That's
that's
funny.
how the relationship happened with them, and
Yeah.
yeah, Ab to this day, like we don't talk as much, nearly as much, because I mean
Mhm.
his scheduling has got to be crazy, especially after his last project, his last phenomenal
Oh
project.
yeah.
But we talked before the project came out and just kind of caught up, and honestly, we connected on something he's now disclosed about therapy. And
Yeah.
I made a video about going to therapy and in the shift that it had on me. And so I'm more grateful for having those kind of conversations with
Yeah.
folks like that, because the music is something that, you know, in any scenario, you use one another,
Mhm.
right? When you're working with somebody, you use one another. Even if it's somebody that's your collaborator, that's your folk, you're using one another. And if you're not using them, that means you're useless. I got that from it was a Kanye quote I heard that said that, right? If
Yeah.
nobody is using you, you're useless. And so it's not a bad thing, but I think that when you have when you go from the using to the exchanging, oh,
Yeah.
that's so valuable. And so
I
I'm
agree.
grateful now that we can have conversations that are aside from just what you got, what you got in them beat archives to like, yo,
Yeah.
how's life? So yeah, I talked to him
Exactly.
recently, and that was super dope to catch up with him on that level.
Yeah, it would be dope. Like, he's like one of my top bucket lists to have on because I would like to just talk about like not even music, but like just about what he goes through his mind because he's just like a deep thinker.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but that's dope. And what other like? Because another collaboration that I mentioned was Noah James. You guys have Pterodactyl Jones. For those who
Hmm.
don't know your duo, will we ever? I know I saw like you guys recording music, but I don't know if it was just solo for Noah. But like, would we ever see another Pterodactyl Jones track or album or
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
you can share?
Yeah, there was a Terry Dr. Jones song that got dropped, called the Terror Dome, that was dropped towards the end of last year that we dropped. So
Okay.
we definitely have plans for it. It's just with Noah always in movement,
Yeah.
with me always in content flow.
Mhm.
Um, that's just been the thing, and the fact that I live where I live at, it's a bit of a distance, but when it's that time, we'll absolutely lock in and we'll make it happen. I don't take that for granted. I know that that's going to happen, but um, yeah, I mean, I think with the tour coming up, that's
Mhm.
going to make more opportunities for us to kind of see, like, you know, when you're collaborating with somebody, I think it's beyond just dope beats, dope rhymes,
Yeah.
right? When you really want to make some great music, you got to spend time with the
Time.
people. You got
Yeah.
to see where they're at in life, because a lot of us have been used to, let's just rap, and we rap and then we go through the motions. People say it's fire, and then they play it for a few months and they forget about it. But there is a key to creating music that makes people want to stick with it, right? To me, it's almost like the equivalent of merchandise. When you give somebody a T-shirt and they're like, "This is a cool tee. I'll wear it a few times." There's a difference between that and when somebody says, "This is my favorite pen," and it has Curtis King on the side of it, right? It has my
Yeah.
favorite quote. So I want to create more moments like that within music, and I have no doubt that he and I will create that, because I think that I'm a better producer. We're both better artists, and it could just be something special. It's good timing.
Yeah, that'd be dope. And what's another favorite like collaboration that you've done for you that stands out to you?
Oh gosh, Leotis. Anything with the homie Oh gosh is gonna always be one of my favorites because um he was the first producer and engineer that I didn't have to over explain things. And he was like we'll talk. And I'm like, man, I was thinking you should. He's like, I already know. And I'm like, I didn't even say it. He's like, I already know. And then he does it. And then I'm like, that was exactly what I was going to be asking for, but 10 times better. He's somebody that making music with is so easy. And
Nice.
not everybody has that skill set. So that's absolutely my favorite collaborator. When we're able to do it, we live even a further distance than we did before. But we got songs in the archives and the banks that I just, I would love to get out there. But he's somebody that whenever we get together, like my first project that cracked top 4 on the iTunes hip hop charts, my actually 2 projects that did,
Yeah.
were produced and engineered solely by him because we just get in a very special zone.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of my favorites for sure.
That's cool. And now to like switch a little bit to the horror side, I asked you if you were like a fan.
Mm-hmm.
Where did like your love for horror come from?
From being a little kid and watching shows that other kids wouldn't watch, from watching black and white horror films and feeling something completely different than I did with like the scary movies of the day. Like
Yeah.
the jump scares didn't scare me because I had real fear. It was just like, oh my God, like, come on, chill out. But like the stories that are told that make you feel like the room is getting smaller, the
Mhm.
stories that are told that make you question what's in the darkness. Like those are things that I'm like, oh, only a Twilight Zone could create that kind of experience.
Yeah.
And so that's where I initially fell in love with the horror genre was
Mhm.
through Twilight Zone because I was like,
Nice.
I was a show that was here 40, 50 years before I was even born. Like how does it still feel so real
Yeah.
today? To me, there's something in the storytelling, there's something in the message that feels like it resonates. Even the more funnier episodes were still 10 times more creepier than like Freddy versus, you know what I'm saying? Like some of
Yeah.
the stuff that I saw as it came through, and I was like, for me, that's what got me
Yeah.
in there. But coming up, I mean, obviously I got my sweater on for you today, but Freddy for sure, Freddy
Yeah.
Cougar, anything
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street, I love that.
Yeah.
But I'm like one of those classic, like I love Alfred Hitchcock. Oh God, I
Nice.
love how to this day. And I know most folks will be like, oh, that's boring. Or what? I'm like, no, there's stories in here that are so real that make them even scarier than just
Yeah.
the straightforward like killing in blood and all. It's just like there's a certain nuance to it that I love so much.
No, I agree. Have you watched the Alfred Hitchcock movie that they did? Like, it was like kind of like a biography of him, but it was Anthony Hopkins plays him. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called
No,
Hitchcock. But you should watch it because I
no.
watched it and it was pretty cool. Like, I think some of it is loosely based on his life,
Yeah,
but other
yeah,
things
yeah.
are
You know how
pretty
they
like
do.
on point.
Gotta
Yeah.
watch that. I gotta watch that. No, I'm and Anthony Hopkins is a great person to play that. I
Yeah,
know
I
he was a
believe
little
it's
bit.
him. Yeah. Let me
I
see.
know he was a little bit trippy. I know my guy Alfred Hitchcock was out there, but um, that's really what got me in love with it. Was like I became more open to like the Freddy Cougars and the Jasons. Like I became more open to all the whole genre, but I
Yeah.
needed my introduction to be Twilight Zone because it was scaring the daylights out of me when I was a kid.
I think it's also because it's like we talk about like the cautionary tales and like the moral at the end. Like I feel that's why because it's like so
Yeah,
relatable to real life is why they
yeah,
were creepy.
and that's the kind of stuff that now as an adult, like it takes so much more to move me.
Yeah.
I get now I understand like when you have a love for a genre, when you have a love for a theme, it's a genuine love for everything that comes along with it, right?
Yeah.
No matter how gory it gets, no matter how even like cheesy some of the
Yeah.
actresses may get, it doesn't matter. You love it in its entirety. Like one of my
Exactly.
favorite TV shows, horror TV shows, is called Tales from the Dark Side.
Oh
It
yeah.
is the corniest,
Yeah.
cheesiest horror genre, like a horror genre TV show you'll see, but I am hooked. I
Yeah.
tell you, I am hooked when I watch it because the stories are intriguing and they're just enough. It's just enough honesty to make you say, Never thought about it like that.
Yeah. Even like Tales from the Hood is like they're kind of silly, some of them, but some of
That's
them are
another
like
one. That's
super
another one.
dope. And I got to meet one of the writers because I went to like a horror convention. It was like I think in 2019 or something.
Oh,
And they
fire.
were
Okay.
really, like actually the two creators were like really dope. But I asked them because my favorite one is the first Tales from the Hood, the episode where they go to the plantation and then the little dolls turn real and attack like the
Yes.
racist slave owner dude.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
asked him, I was like, "How did you come up with that?" Because I thought it was really dope. And I guess he said his family's from New Orleans and like he just kind of grew up like around that
Um,
type of storytelling. I was like, "Oh, that's interesting."
yeah, I
Uh,
did that is another I feel like that's a genre of like whatever you want to call it, like minority trauma,
yeah,
black
or
trauma, like
like
black
revenge,
horror,
like
revenge. Like there's that's a whole genre like that. That's
yeah,
why one of my favorite directors now is Jordan Peele.
yeah.
I always say like I want my music when it hits you emotionally, I want it to make you feel how I felt the first time I watched Get Out from Jordan Peele or the first time I watched
Mm,
Us from Jordan Peele. That is literally what I'm going for. And how do you do that? It's got to be not only a little bit out there sonically, but it's also got to be so close to home that it makes you question if you're safe,
yeah.
right? Like has to be a level of truth to it and unexpectedness to it, and then also a level of underlying messages and mystery
Yes.
eggs that make you feel like, oh, somebody really thought about this movie and I can't predict what's going to happen next. I That's what I need at this point
Yeah,
for
yeah.
something to be in, for a movie to be enjoyable. But that's literally what my music is like there's a reason why I took those drums out for that portion of time. There's a reason I chose the cello and not a synthesizer string over this part
Mhm.
right here. There's a reason it got super dark and dramatic towards the end of it because think about what I said in those last two bars. Like I'm conscious of all that.
Yeah, yeah. That's dope. And kind of getting to like talking about your favorite horror movies. Like, what are your top five? And that's kind of hard sometimes, but right now,
Yeah. Tales from the Hood is definitely one of them. Um, the Twilight Zone movie is another one of
okay,
those. Jordan Peele already has bumped up with Us
yeah,
and Get Out. I'm gonna put both of those, so that's
okay,
four. And then what's the fifth one for me? Um, what is a fifth one for me? It'd have to be something like '90s. So I'm thinking like it's gonna change every day, but I'm gonna just say like
yeah.
Silence of the Lamb.
Okay, I love that movie. Yeah, I'm
Yeah, because
obsessed
it's
with
like one.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
like once again, it's one of those that are like it's not so far fetched that that couldn't be you,
Yeah, I know.
right?
Yeah,
Like oh, it's just yeah, those and pretty much any movie where people are buried alive and they're still alive and and they find themselves at the bottom of it, like those make me feel so claustrophobic
oh,
when I'm
yeah,
watching them. But that's what I'm getting at is like, in order for me to enjoy a horror film, like I gotta feel something,
yeah,
and I think that's where a lot of like horror films kind of lose it at. Like a lot of more modern ones is where it'll be like this person gets a message. No, like the new Chucky. I Look. I don't know how you felt about the new
no, I
Chucky,
didn't like it, but
the
I
digital
still went to go
Chucky.
see it though. But
I went to go see it too. Because excuse me, let me know what. Let me take out Silence of the Lamb and let me put Child's Play. Child's Play is gonna be in
right,
that list. Okay, that's it.
yeah,
Child's Play. It don't matter which was. It does matter. The first three I say, but
yeah,
it
I
got
agree.
to a point in that last one where I'm like, I don't want to see Wi-Fi Chucky.
Seriously. I
You
mean,
know
the
what I'm
creepy
saying?
part was that it's a doll, not a something robotic or electronic, right?
You're
That's
making it CGI. Like I don't want to see CG Chucky. I
oh
want to
god,
see Chucky where the hair looked very like
real, like
real,
human,
and then
like
like even
yeah,
yeah, like the one of the first one when he's running, his feet are running up. It looks like a real doll that is running up on his lady. So, yeah, those are for sure probably my favorites. Yeah, Child's Play definitely is up there because it's that level of and also too, I feel like the '90s and the '80s had a certain style of filming and coloring.
yeah. And just the special effects too. It was like for it to be so long
Yeah.
ago, like we didn't use fucking CGI. We had like animatronics, like actual gore. Like,
Look, I don't care what you say. Animatronics are by far the scariest shit on earth. That is the
I know.
scariest
I'd
thing
rather
on
do
earth.
that a million times than CGI.
That's why, like, when I played, I don't know if you played Nights at Freddy's. You ever
No, I
played that?
haven't. I heard of it, but I've never played it.
I played it. I got videos on my YouTube where I'm like playing that on my
I'll look it
my,
up right
my
now.
my VR. I had like I'm genuinely terrified because these things are just it's like the Chuck E. Cheese animatronics. Like those are the kind of things that I look at and I'm like, if I got a knock at the door at 3 in the morning and it was somebody that was dressed up like Freddy Krueger, I'd be like, all right, whatever, man, like chill. If it was an animatronic and they were moving like that, yo, I might have to run out the house and leave my family here. Tell you right now, y'all don't have to deal with that. I'm playing, but yeah.
No, I agree. Like Silence of the Lambs, it's like one of my favorite ones that I think I go to a lot. Like I rewatch it a bunch of times because I mean
Oh.
Anthony Hopkins and then like Jodie Foster as Clarice Starling. Like I always wanted to be her because I wanted to be a detective as a kid. I was like, she's so
Mm.
badass. But at the same time, like now as I watch it as an adult, I'm like, she was fucking scared. It was like she was a
Yeah.
rookie, you know? Especially that last scene where it's like everything goes like he turn off the lights and he has like the goggles, and I was like, shit, that's an intense scene.
And you
Um,
realize how much of it was lacking common sense. Like, I don't know how much common sense we have in a moment, but there's certain things that's like, why don't you just use that light that you're using right there
yeah,
to, to point it in the other direction? Won't you,
yeah.
why not go in the house? Why don't we just like do something else? Go grocery shopping or something. I don't
Seriously, and then
know.
she goes without any backup. It's like, come on.
Yeah, like
Uh,
you just gonna go in, like you just feeling that audacious, huh? All right,
yeah.
cool.
And then Child's Play, like I don't know if you can see it, but I have like a Child's Play 2 back here, like a little
Oh, I see it
shadow
now.
box.
Yeah,
Because and actually I was gonna recommend. I don't know if you saw I did like a quick like review, but I did. They did a documentary of Chucky. It's called Living with Chucky. And
really.
yeah, it's pretty dope. It just came out like a few months ago. It was, I think, filmed last year, but it just dropped
Mhm.
everywhere. I think it's like on Screambox, or you can probably stream it somewhere.
Okay, I'll check that
Um,
out.
yeah, it's pretty dope because the girl that directed it, she's actually the daughter of one of the of what's his name? I think Tony or something, Tony Gardner or something like that. He's like the
Okay,
animatronics guy from like the Seed of Chucky and on. And I was like, oh, that's dope. So
okay.
it's literally she's lived with Chucky her whole life because she was
It's
on
in the
set all the
family.
time.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, so
That's
it's pretty
crazy.
dope. Yeah, I was like, oh shit, and she's like super young too. Like I was like, that's pretty inspirational. Like for me as like wanting to be a filmmaker, I was
Mhm.
like, oh wow. But it was really good. It touches on like pretty much the whole franchise and then a little bit
Yeah.
of the TV show. Um, so
Uh,
it's pretty cool. If you're a Chucky fan, you'll probably enjoy it.
how did you feel about Bride of Chucky?
I was a hater for the longest time, but now like I still it's not my favorite, but I feel like
Yeah,
it has
neither
its
is
cult
mine.
following now. Like it's still like everybody loves it because of I love Jennifer
Yeah,
Tilly. I think that's the only reason why I like it. Other than that, it's like I mean Redman's in it with like a silly ass
it's
fucking
just
role.
it's almost like Leprechaun. The Leprechaun movies,
Oh
Leprechaun
yeah,
from the Hood. Like when he started getting from the hood, I was like, this is now a spoof of itself at this point. Like it's not even
yeah,
like it loses that creepy factor of like this little thing just pops up out of nowhere and is looking all like you know what I'm saying like
yeah,
and it has that 90s detail like the 90s just felt like it was so much more detail to
yeah,
even when you think about like the Goblin movies and you think about the 80s just had a very like nasty perspective on gore and
yeah,
it was like and I say nasty like not like I'm grossed out but I say nasty like they didn't recognize like how these textures
yeah.
are like probably more intense than the CGI smoothed out stuff that we see
Oh
today.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like even when you see an alien up close, like in an M Night Shyamalan movie, you see one up close, like you could look at it and see like, okay, it's too
yeah,
pretty, like it's too much
yeah,
CGI.
yeah, yeah.
But in those, they were like that damn thing was made with
Fucking
somebody's
puppets
hands,
and yeah, it's like
puppets and
crazy.
hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, Puppet Master's another one of my favorites too.
Okay. Yeah,
Puppet
I like
Master,
all
yeah.
like the 90s, 80s. I think yeah. Like I think when people tell me it's like, oh, my top five, I realize they're like 80s or 90s because I don't know. I just
Mm-hmm.
it was like the nostalgia of it. Like, did you ever watch Wishmaster?
Yes, yes, yes,
Yes,
yes. Wishmaster,
I
absolutely.
love that. That's like I think a hidden gem, honestly. But it had all
Hmm.
the cameos too. Like in that, if you notice, it's everybody. Like Freddy Krueger's in there, the guy
Yeah.
that played Jason Kane Hodder. Like all these, it's pretty dope.
Children,
Uh,
Children of the Corn
yes, that's
is another
another.
one.
That's another
No
good one.
fair, no fair. I just like random that just pops up in my head. It's random moments that I'm just like, I do love night Candyman is another one too.
Candyman. Pet
So
Cemetery
yeah.
just turned. It's like as old as I am. It's from '89, so it's like
Hmm.
I'm about to turn 34. But yeah, it's like it just had its anniversary. I was like, damn. Like I remember watching that as a kid.
Yeah.
Um, Even that I don't know if you remember the scene where like it's the Aunt Zelda or whatever. That shit was so creepy to me. Where they go and it's like the aunt's like dying and she has like some sort of like I don't know if she has like multiple sclerosis or what it is, but it's like her
Yes.
spine and shit. Like,
I'm telling you, they whatever
but see,
detail, like I don't know if
yeah,
it's
the
the
details.
camera, the details were so different in that. Maybe that's what happens when you spend less time with the computer trying to create it and more time where somebody's actually a makeup artist spending 7 hours.
Yeah,
Like it just has a different aesthetic and a different effect on the viewer. I love those movies. Those
yeah.
movies still to this day make me feel a little bit uneasy.
Yeah, and even I think the character development, like the actor, I don't know, it's just different. I feel like it was now, like, because I went to go see the new Evil Dead because I'm a huge fan of like the franchise, but
Okay.
I loved it. It wasn't like it's still kind of low from like all the ones that have come out, but what I didn't like was the character development. Like I feel like you really didn't really care for the characters because you don't really have time to like for them to like get flushed out. And for like the movies that we just mentioned, like I feel we all have a connection with some of the characters. Like Child's Play
Hmm.
Andy, right? Like the little kid freaking stole the show.
Hmm.
Clarice Starling, even though he's like a little rookie, but you still have this connection. And I feel like that's kind of a little bit lost in some of the more current films. I think like Jordan Peele's done a great job. Like there's
For sure.
obviously there's still good ones. I'm not trying to hate on the genre because I feel like it's thriving, but uh like the newer ones are it's kind of hard to like see that connection versus how we had it back in the day.
You know what I kind of feel like might have contributed to that is that era of like the Scream movies and I Know What You Did Last Summer,
Mm,
and that they didn't really dive too much detail before they killed somebody off.
that's
Like
true.
there was a Scream movie where it had like Mekhi Phifer in the first scene, and then he gets killed literally in the first scene in a bathroom. And it's just like we have no context outside of knowing this is a young dude and his girlfriend who are, doing whatever
Oh
they do
yeah,
in the bath.
Omar Epps. Omar
Omar,
Epps.
Omar, yeah,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
McConaughey, Omar Epps.
yeah. And
And I'm
Scream too.
like,
Yeah.
yo, like y'all just gonna kill people off before we even like
Mm,
fall in love with their character.
yes.
Like, I think that was more so when writers were treating even stars of the movie like they were expendable. Like
I think
you're
it's
gonna
like the
die
shock
anyways.
value,
The
right?
shock
Like,
value, the even like having was it Carmen? Not it wasn't Carmen Electra. Who was in that first scene? I'm getting the spoofs mixed up. That's
oh,
what's
it's
happening.
oh yeah, yeah. You are like with scary movie. I think it's
Yeah,
you're talking about Heather Graham, maybe? Is it
yeah,
the
for the first Scream movie.
Neve Campbell, like the first where they're like, or is it like the spoof movie within the movie?
See, that's where I get mixed up. That's why
Yeah,
that's my brain, my '90s brain starts mixing all these up. But
yeah,
anyways, the fact that they would kill off somebody who would otherwise be the main
yeah,
actress or the main
yeah,
actor, I think there
yeah,
was a whole era where it was like, I don't care if you're this person, you're gonna get killed within this first 15 minutes, and we're
yeah.
gonna
Like
move on.
Drew Barrymore, right? It's probably who you're
You were,
talking
yeah,
about, maybe.
exactly,
Yeah,
and we're not gonna talk anything else about it. And I think that's where, um, people started to kind of mimic that, and I'm with you.
yeah,
Like we, to a certain degree, we missed an opportunity to get to know. Like that's what I love about Jordan Peele movies because he'll tell stories in details that you're like, why is this relevant?
yeah. It's
And
like a
then you'll
slow build.
and
Yeah.
then 45 minutes into it, you'll recognize like that look on the mom's face
Mhm.
is from some deep seated trauma that we had to see this part in order to know what context that has for this part.
Yeah.
I'm loving the fact that a lot of movies are heading more in that direction now
Yeah.
because that was a missing thing, I think, for sure, as a viewer.
Yeah, yeah, and I talked to I had a guest on too that she's that like a huge fan of Scream for that reason too, because she says ever since the Scream came out,
Hmm.
some of the horror movies like kind of lost like the seriousness I guess to it or the
Yeah,
scariness, and they made it kind of silly. And I was like, I'm a Scream fan. I love Wes Craven, but I
yeah,
was like
yeah.
I was like I can see that like why it could kind of change like the direction movies went. But I feel like you said like now I think we're moving back a little bit into that.
Hmm.
Um,
And I wonder too with Wes Craven, like Wes Craven had a thing for killing off women. And I always, I used to wonder, like, why you always killing, like, why are your storylines always killing off, like, and it's always like killing off, like, pretty, like the prettier they are, oh, they gonna
yeah.
for sure die. Like, I'm like, Wes Craven, what happened to you in high school? Like, what are you living out right now? I used to wonder that even watching that because my mom would like take me some of those movies. I'm like, Mom, what
Yeah.
you think happened to him that made him like when I become a director, everybody's getting killed in my movies.
I didn't even think about that, but that's true.
Like look back at those movies now and pay attention to like whoever is like the most glossied out. They got like the most focus on them. They all they got them all dolled up.
Yeah.
They for sure getting killed.
He probably
Like, what
wanted
you
to change the formula. He's like, it's time to like change it up. Kill all the pretty girls.
Mr. Creighton?
And talking about like the final girls, like did you have anybody that like for you was like one of your favorites, like that survives like the horror movie, like a final girl?
Oh, that's called a final girl. I didn't know that was
Yeah,
a term for that.
yeah.
The final girl. That's a good question. Nah, all the ones I like got killed. They all got killed. Like I was like,
One
they
of
gonna
ones
make it.
the one of the ones I like, but like now it's probably not a good time to be my favorite is Jada Pinkett's character in Demon Knight. I don't know if you ever watched Demon
I
Knight.
haven't watched Demon Knight. Nah.
It's a dope film.
Okay.
It's from like Tales from the Crypt, and then they did like their own little series. I think it was in the '90s too. But her character's badass. But I mean, I know
Yeah.
right now she's being critiqued for other things.
See, and that's the other thing too is like maybe that's why the scary movies have gone the direction they have because maybe that's why more context is being here because folks are like supremely woke and they're supremely like into representation, and so people want to know, no, why didn't you tell more backstory of this person's life and
Yeah, yeah,
how this trauma had an effect? And it's like you can, to a certain degree, you can only tell so many details before you lose your audience and before you
yeah,
lose what the overall purpose of the movie is. But that's not to say the details don't matter. Um, but yeah, it's an interesting time for that genre to thrive and exist in because
yeah, yeah.
yeah, some people just they don't know how to teeter that line.
Yeah. And what about like I like to ask this when people are part of the hip hop community because there's obviously been like a crossover with hip hop and horror for a while now. We talked about Tales
Yeah.
from the Hood and all that stuff. Who would you say is like one of your favorite like horror films that has like a hip hop artist in it? If you have any.
Probably Scary Movie 1.
Okay.
Scary Movie 1 or like yeah, that's probably the only like and that's not even really a horror movie. Like you don't really
Yeah. It's like
categorize
horror
it.
comedy.
I can't take. I'm sorry. It's just it's unless it's like Ice Cube, and that's not even really a. Would you consider it a? It's not a horror movie. Like Anaconda is not a horror movie, but like,
Yeah, it still kind of
is
is. I
it
guess.
kind of like
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
a
like
creature feature, right? So.
that's probably the closest thing I can have to that because it
Yeah.
just it's something about, and I love my culture. I love hip hop, but it's something about seeing a rapper that I've seen a certain way get
Yeah.
on screen and then try to act like. Yeah, I'm just a guy that bags up groceries. Don't pay attention to me and the face tattoos that I have. Like, no, fam, you are who you are. It's hard for me to take it serious. So,
Yeah.
in a traditional, like, I have to really think about that one. It's not really a horror movie, but uh, Justin Timberlake has played a few roles. One of which was that Justin Timberlake? I'm pretty sure it was either Justin or Leonardo. I want to say it was Justin Timberlake, but it was a movie where everybody wore watches, but the
Oh,
watches
like in
didn't represent
time or something, or
in
just
time. Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. I don't know. Yeah, I think I
mean,
know what you're talking about. Sci-fi.
those are
right?
kind of those are the. I mean, he's not a hip hop artist, but it's like
Yeah.
those are the kind of roles that I'm more open to. But
Yeah.
say rapper in a horror movie,
Or
and
like
it's
they have an
not-
actual storyline, pretty much, is like we're
Yeah,
talking about, right? Like develop their
I-
character.
don't give. I'm a 50 Cent fan, but don't you put 50 Cent in a Chucky movie and think I'm gonna take it serious? Like, and that's no shot to him. It's just like I think part of the part of what makes a movie scary, or not even scary, but part of what makes a movie mysterious and lures me in as a viewer is the fact that I feel like I don't know anything about this person. I don't know what their
Yeah.
demons are. I don't know what they're capable of doing. So like when you see the Chucky movies and you meet the mom or you meet the kid in his own right, the main kid was kind of a creepy kid, right? As he was kind of a creepy. He had some creepy the way he talked and mommy Chucky said like he was creepy.
Yeah.
So you never you never felt comfortable thinking that Chucky was the only one doing all the bad. You look at the
Yeah.
kid and you're like, is this gonna be one of them plot twists where Chucky was never really alive and the kid actually was pushing people out the window and all of that stuff? Like I had that thought. So
Yeah.
that to me is if I don't assume too much as a viewer of the person that I'm watching because I know them from their songs and their
Mm-hmm.
rap career, that level of like I don't even know who this actor is, but damn it, they're creepy as hell right now. I
Yeah.
like that level of mystery when it comes to me treating this person as a new case in a new scenario.
Yeah. I wonder who knows. We might. I'm trying to think of like a rapper that would be dope, like actual actor, and I
Mm,
can't think of the top of my head right now, like who would be a
ma-
dope one.
Childish,
Oh yeah, that's
Donald
true.
Glover,
And he's
because
already done
because
a little bit, kind of like that vibe.
that Michael Jackson character he played was probably the closest thing that I can say to actually being legit creepy. Because I was like, is that Donald Glover? I think it is. Like, but once again, it's those kind of shows that make me feel something. Atlanta made me feel
Yeah.
something, and so many of the so many just movies in general are just eye candy. They're just computer generated first, or they're just so much about the surprise factor that they
Hmm.
lose the great art of storytelling. And so, um, I think that's why those are so important is that people still care about that.
Yeah, it's true. It's like, or they follow like the trope, like the rapper, because it's like with Busta Rhymes in like the Halloween movie where he just
Oh
beats the shit out of
God.
Michael. Michael.
Like this ain't a music video. Like and I love Buster, but this ain't a music video. And you like that, yeah, that's cool bragging rights for his resume. But
Yeah.
as a viewer and a fan of the genre, like give me matter of fact, I'd rather you give me a whole script of people I've never met before. Like even when I saw I really did enjoy it might not be a popular opinion, but I really did enjoy the new It movies. The
Oh yeah, I
first
like
one.
him. Yeah.
The second one was way
Yeah.
too damn long. But the first one, I was like, I didn't know enough. Like I didn't watch Stranger Things or anything. I didn't know enough about any of these characters
Hmm.
to be like, oh God, here he goes doing his rapper thing right now. Like he can't turn off his rapper voice. Like I just can't even take it serious because I know what you rap about. But in that movie, like I felt like those characters were so disconnected from who I was that
Hmm.
it gave me a second to just sit in my chair and say, "Well, tell me more about your story. Tell me more about your story and how they all kind of interact with each other." And
Yeah.
I like that. I love movies that give backstories on people that otherwise would be forgotten characters.
Yeah. I agree. I think the only decent. I'm trying to think of like the only decent like rapper. I don't know if you've seen 13 Ghosts. Rod Digger comes out in it, and actually, she actually
Okay.
survives the movie. But she was decent. But then I guess she kind of did play like the funny black girl. Like the
Yeah, yeah,
funny
yeah.
like
That's a
nanny.
character too.
But then again, it's kind of like the trope. But I liked her character. I think if anybody, I think she's like the
Or
closest
the
at least that
closest
we've
thing.
gotten something.
I probably say Donald Glover for me because Donald Glover,
Yeah.
he already has a very like he has an unpredictable character to him, right? There's times where
Yeah.
he does stand up and he's a funny guy or whatever. He can be that sitcom guy. Then he can also be like really really dark with his comedy. And
Yeah.
those are the ones that are like they're unpredictable. I feel like Andre 3000 could do the same thing if you
Yeah.
wanted to play that role, right? He could play a role that's like it's ambiguous in terms of is it the good guy? Is it the bad guy? I think those are the ones that could really play that. But yeah,
Yeah. Or you know what?
don't
Who I
think
just
he's
thought
going.
about that would be
Who
dope. Joey Badass, because he's a good actor. I think he's a good
he
actor.
is.
I think
He
he would
is.
be a dope like in a horror film, like some Jordan Peele film or something. I don't know. Maybe I'll speak it
I
into
have to
existence.
see. I'm gonna take your word for it. I have to see it because he real New York. Like, and if I
Yeah.
see him like stomping on a ghost in his Tims, I'm done with that movie. I'm done with that movie.
I
That'd be
think he could
great
get in
meme
character.
material.
I don't know. I have a feeling he could.
You
I don't
got
know.
faith in him?
Yeah.
That'll be dope meme material. But after that, I don't know if I can take that movie serious no more. Like, if my thing is this, if you're gonna do it, like go all out. Like 50 Cent, I remember he did a role. I didn't actually watch it, but I thought I was intrigued by he lost a gang of weight to play a cancer patient. And I'm like,
Oh,
that's
well.
the only way I can watch this movie and not see 50 Cent.
Yeah.
Because if you're like this, because that's the thing about rappers is that so many rappers in tradition, I think this is why they don't translate well to horror movies for a lot of fans, is they're used to always being the superhero. They're
Yeah.
always used to being like, I win in the end. And in horror movies, all those rules go out the gate. The
Yeah.
strongest person in the room gets can get killed. Right? The leader can get killed. The main actress can get killed. But rappers are like, nah, ain't nobody gonna beat me in these Tims. Like, no, fam, that's just not real life.
This AI thing cracks me up.
Oh my gosh.
And before we get out of here, I usually like to ask, like, what kind of legacy? I know you live in the moment, but what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
That it's not over until you say it's over. Les Brown has a statement that says it's not over until I win. But an extension of that and what I hope my legacy represents is that there's been so many parts of my career where people thought that was the pinnacle. People thought that was the peak of everything that I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've continued to do through movement, through evolution, through learning new skills, through not being afraid to try things, irregardless of what age I am, irregardless of how goofy it may look to the general public, my ability to evolve on a consistent basis has been the key to not only my success, but always finding a way to move through whatever obstacle comes in my way. So I hope that my legacy represents the opposite of what they say about most DIYers is that if you're a jack of all
Mm-hmm.
trades, you can be a master of none, or even the idea that you can only be passionate about one thing. I mean, you are
Yeah.
showing with your platform, like you are an example of a prime example of what I want this DIY culture to represent. In that you can be passionate about multiple things, and not only
Yeah.
passionate, but be efficient and be at the top of your game in multiple areas. And the only people who have issue with that are people who have an old school mentality. Childish Gambino said this recently in an interview with GQ where he was like, people always need a vent. Whenever they're thinking of
Mm.
a celebrity or they're thinking about somebody who's talented, not even celebrity, somebody who's talented in multiple things, they got
Mm-hmm.
to find that one thing, that one flaw to make you real to them. Oh, well, he's tight at all that, but like he's short. You know what I'm saying? They got to find that one thing.
Yeah, that's
For me,
true.
they're like, but look at his eyes. He got bags in his eye. He don't get no sleep. Like, who wants a life? Now we're getting to a point where through AI, through tools that have never been available before, not only can you do all these things at a high level, but you can get the assistance that you used to have to pay a team for by
Yeah.
using AI tools that can help expedite the process. Now, instead of me spending 20 hours on an edit, I can now, like I saw a website called Opus Clip that
Mm-hmm.
basically will take a long stream interview like this
Yeah.
and will chop up micro content
Wow.
and then even put captions on it, put a title on it, and tell you a score of the high likelihood that it'll go viral. How helpful would that be for someone who
Wow.
spends time making music and all these different things? Now, instead of like Childish said, when Elvis was around and people were like, he's a terrible actor, but he's a great musician. Well, maybe he would have been a better actor, a greater actor, had the music making process didn't take as long as it did back in his day.
Yeah.
Had he had FL Studio, Elvis with FL Studio sounds crazy, but had he had those kind of tools, music would have been so much faster, quicker, and easier. Now he can focus in on being a better actor or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, a better public speaker, whatever he wanted to do. We're the generation that gets to live that. So
Yeah.
my legacy, I think, ultimately is going to be that even though you are doing it yourself, um, sky is still the limit.
Yeah. Yeah. That's dope. Yeah. Thank you, for being on and, sharing and dropping gems and all that stuff. And I
Of
appreciate
course.
you. And keep doing what you're doing because it is inspiring though to see you do, your thing and kind of me, like I can relate to a lot of the things that you do because I like multitasking and stuff like that. So,
Likewise.
um, thank you again. And for those listening in, thank you for, tuning in. Follow Curtis King. Have his IG right here, and I'll share the rest in the description. But if you haven't already, follow him. Follow myself if you're not already following me, and subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Can
Thank
I
you
say
guys.
one thing?
Yeah,
Can I
go
say
ahead.
one thing before you leave out of here?
Yeah.
Thank you for your platform because it allows us to talk about other things outside of music. So we're
That's true.
grateful for you. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in.